Yeah, welcome back. So today we will do the second order sufficiency conditions, the KKT conditions, but the second order sufficiency conditions. We are still discussing the problem NIP, and this is proposition 4.3.2 of Burtsikas. As I said earlier, also there are many different set of necessary and sufficiency conditions which can be written for the generic NIP problem. But under the assumption of regularity, we write the KKT set of conditions, which are probably the most popular ones, which I am covering in this particular course. But there are other conditions like Fridtjohn conditions, and there are many other. They go under the category of what is known as constraint qualification, and there are under different constraint qualifications, regularity being one of them. Different ways it can be put, but we will be restricting to the KKT conditions. Now, again, the necessary conditions are implicitly inbuilt in the sufficiency conditions. So, your problem is that of minimize f of x subject to h of x equal to 0 and g of x less than or equal to 0. The set of these are vector functions h of x and g of x, and they are twice continuously differentiable. And now let x star satisfy the, if the x star satisfies this following set of conditions, then we can say that x star is a local minimum. That's what the sufficiency condition is all about. Now embedded in it is that first of all you will write the Lagrangian function x, lambda and mu, which can be written as f of x plus lambda transpose h of x plus mu transpose g of x, where lambda is the Lagrangian multiplier with equality constraints and mu is the Lagrangian multiplier with the inequality constraints. And then the x star lambda, you should be able to find a x star lambda star mu star such that x star is a stationary point of the Lagrangian function evaluated with Lagrangian multiplier set to lambda star and mu star. It should be a feasible operating point, and the mu's, now here onwards the mu's should be greater than or equal to 0 for j equal to 1 to r. So there is no restriction on the sign of lambdas, which are the Lagrangian multipliers associated with the equality constraints, just as in NEP problem. But just like in LIP problem that we had discussed earlier, the Lagrangian multipliers which are associated with the and this was a part of necessary condition also associated with the inequality constraints should be greater than or equal to 0, and they are treated as 0 for all those constraints which are not active, the inequality constraints which are not active. For all of them, j not coming from the set of active constraints, the Lagrangian multiplier are defined as 0. So for active constraints, the active inequality constraints, it is either 0 or strictly greater than 0. Now, this this is all a part of necessary condition also. Now you evaluate the Hessian of the Lagrangian function with lambdas and mu fixed at the corresponding star values and x also fixed at the corresponding star value. This is a n cross n matrix, and you should have, this should have a positive curvature for all directions, non-zero directions y, which are in the null space of the Jacobian of the equality constraints and the binding or active inequality constraints. So this y not equal to 0, which is in the null space of this set here, should give you a positive curvature on the Hessian of the Lagrangian function. This is also a part of the necessary condition. Now we are saying what extra sufficiency for x star to be a candidate for local optimal, all of above has to be satisfied. Now to say that indeed it is a local optimal. In fact, what we are going to say is that it is a strict local optimal. What in addition we are saying in the sufficiency condition is that the Lagrangian multiplier mu j stars corresponding to the active inequality constraints should be strictly greater than 0, and uh, and this was said in the this curvature should be non-negative is what was said in the second order necessary conditions. Here we are saying that this curvature should be strictly positive. So curvature on the null space, directions in the null space vectors should be strictly positive, and the Lagrangian multipliers corresponding to active constraints should be strictly greater than 0. Then x star is a strict local minimum of f subject to h of x less equal to 0 and g of x less than or equal to 0. So the very similar to what we did in LIP, but the proof will have to be very different from what we did in the than in the LIP, because with nonlinear constraints there are not necessarily feasible directions but feasible arcs. So let's take an example, I have titled this lecture as McCormick example 1967. This is I have taken it from Bazara, Shareli and Shetty, and this beautiful example illustrates all the intricacies of the optimality conditions that we have discussed. So our problem is minimize x1 minus 1 whole square plus x2 square. This is the minimization. So it's a two-dimensional problem. So we can draw and see. And there is only one constraint, which is g1 of x, which is an inequality constraint. Since now we are more focused our discussion on the inequality, NEP we have already done. So g1 of x, which is 2k x1 minus x2 square less than or equal to 0, where k is a positive constant. So this k is not 0, k is a positive constant. So in other words, this equation can also be written as x2 square should be greater than or equal to 2k x1. X2 square should be greater than or equal to 2k x1. So let's plot it. Let's plot this. So let me start with, let's say, k equal to half. So if I take k equal to half, which I have drawn here, then I am getting x2 square should be greater than or equal to x1. So first of all, I should plot x2 square is equal to x1, which is same as plotting x2 equal to under root of x1, which basically indicates that x1 should always be a non-negative number. So therefore, I will start from origin 0, 0 and plot only on x. I will increase x1 only in the x1 only in this particular direction. Now if k is half, 2k will become 1. So I am just looking at x2 square equal to x1. So if I take x1 equal to 1, then x2 square is equal to 1, and so x2 will become plus minus of 1. So therefore I get 2 points here and here, 2 points I get, and based on these 3 points I can now draw this curve. Now what is my requirement? X2 square should be, in this particular case, x2 square should be greater than or equal to x1. So therefore, this is where x2 square is equal to x1. I can go this side, but this side is not admissible. So therefore, what I have shown here in this yellow shaded portion, this indicates the feasible region for that particular choice of k2 equal to half. This indicates the feasible region, and so this region here is all infeasible region. Okay, so therefore if I take two feasible points here on the boundary and join them, for example, you can see that all the intervening points here are not belonging to the set of are not feasible points. They are not belonging to the set S, so to say. So therefore this set S is not convex. Of course, if you take 2 points here, the whole line will belong into it. It's not a non-empty set. But for it to be a convex set, you should, any 2 points if you take in the feasible space, and if you connect join the line segment, the segment should be in the set. That is not happening. So this is therefore, even though the objective function is convex over all Rn, but because the constraint set is not a convex, this is a non-convex programming problem. Okay. Now, if I reduce the value of k, then it is quite intuitive to see that this is the way my this curve will come, the parabolic kind of curve will come. And if I increase the k, I will get a curves which become with larger, and they will appear like this. Uh, now, now let's look at the contours of the objective function. So if you write x1 minus 1 whole square plus x2 minus 0 whole square equal to r square, you can see that these represent circles of radius r, objective function value r square, centered at 1 comma 0. So therefore, centered here, you can draw a small circle first, then a larger circle, another larger circle, and so on. And since our job, but all of these are representing the unconstrained minimum 1 comma 0. The unconstrained minimum is infeasible. The unconstrained minimum is infeasible. So as you keep increasing, for example, if suppose the k is 1 by 8, now you keep increasing, all points on this circle are infeasible until when the circle will touch at these 2 points, and that is where you will get the first circle of smallest radius which is feasible. And so geometrically we can see that it will give you these two optimums. However, if k is large enough, then actually you will get 0 point as an optimal point. That is also obvious. So in general, as I develop this thing below, you will see that I will have to evaluate 0 always, whether it is optimal or not. But for small case, 0 even though feasible, is not an optimal point. But for k's which are large, these points will not exist at all, and there will be only first time only you will touch at 0, and then 0 will become an optimal point. So this is what our geometry is saying. Now let's get this story through the Lagrangian multipliers, the algebraic way. All right. So first of all, uh, express the constraint in the form g1 of x less than or equal to 0, which is already explained here. Then write objective function plus mu times 2k minus x1 minus of x2 square as your Lagrangian function. So that is what I have done here. x1 minus 1 whole square plus x2 square plus mu 2k x1 minus x2 square is defined as Lagrangian function. At optimal point x star mu star, this is a stationary point of the Lagrangian function. So take the derivative with respect to x1. So you get 2x1 minus 1 plus 2k into mu equal to 0 because of the stationarity, and it's being evaluated at stars. And when I take partial derivative with respect to x2, you will get 2x2 star minus 2 mu x2 to be equal to 0. So the 2's you can cancel out, and what I have written here, you please take note of it. This says x2 star into 1 minus mu should be equal to 0, and this says x1 star is equal to 1 minus mu star k1. So this is the essence of the requirement of Lagrangian function to be stationary. Now, what are the other requirements which were coming right from the necessity? This mu star should be greater than or equal to 0. Is it not? This is required that mu star should be greater than or equal to 0. And obviously, if the complementarity condition is that if the constraint is either active or the mu is 0. Sometimes it is possible that it is active and it just has a 0 sensitivity, mu is also 0. But in general, this is our complementarity condition. Mu star into this thing should be equal to 0. Now, first of all, let's see if mu can be 0 or not. First, because there are two possibilities now. Mu is 0 or mu is greater than 0. If mu is 0, then the question arises whether the constraint is active or inactive. But inactive constraints will always have mu 0. But first of all, so therefore, let's figure out whether mu can be 0 or not. If mu is 0, okay, if mu is 0, then what happens to what does this say? This says x2 star into 1 is equal to 0. So therefore x2 star becomes 0. If x2 star is set to 0, then what happens to x1 star if mu is set to 0 here? X1 star becomes 1 comma 0. Sorry, x1 star becomes 1. So what's the point you have got? 1 comma 0. But what is the 1 comma 0 point? Which is the center of the circle, and it is very clear that center of the circle is infeasible. You put 1 here, you put 0 here. So what you will get? You will get requirement that 2k should be less than or equal to 0. But because k is given to be positive, this is violated. This is violated. 2k is positive and therefore strictly greater than 0. So 2k is not less than or equal to 0. So therefore mu equal to 0 leads to a infeasible point. Hence mu cannot be, there is no feasible x star at which mu can be 0. So we eliminate the requirement that mu can be 0. So then what is the only possibility that is left with? Mu star should be greater than 0. If mu star is greater than 0, then the complementarity condition becomes strict, which is to say that if this is positive, it forces that the constraint has to be g of x star should be equal to 0. In other words, 2k x1 star minus x2 star should be equal to 0. So now if mu is greater than 0, then the constraint has to be active. So x2 star has to be equal to 2k1 times of x1 star. Okay. Now let's again come back to this requirement here. We had derived that, is it not? We had derived that x2 star minus 1 mu minus mu star should be equal to 0. So this tells you either this is 0, in which case this goes to 0, or mu star should be 1, in which case also this goes to 0. And in practicality, you can have 0 of x2 star and 1 of mu star, but we don't really need to worry about it. If we analyze both these cases, that case is automatically covered in it. So therefore, I have put it like either x2 star should be equal to 0 or mu star should be equal to 1. So now let us say that x2 star is 0. So if x2 star is 0, then from this equation what do we get? K is positive. So what do you can say about x1 star? X1 star also becomes equal to 0. So which is the point that you are hitting now? You are hitting this particular point 0 comma 0, which is a feasible point, because independent of k, 0 0 is always a feasible point. So you get this. Now from the first equation we had that x1 should be, x1 star is equal to 1 minus mu star of k. So now because of the fact that x1 star has become 0, what became of mu star? The mu star now becomes reciprocal of k, which is 1 by k for all k greater than 0, which is positive very clearly. And so one kkt solution, we don't know whether it's optimal or not, but one kkt solution which meets all the requirements of the necessary requirements is 0 0 stationarity requirements and Lagrangian multiplier to be positive is 0 0 and mu star to be equal to 1 by k. Okay. We'll answer whether this is minimum or not when we look at the second order conditions. That mu star is positive is already met, but the other requirement which is the projected Hessian to be positive semi-definite or positive definite, that part we still need to check. Now let's look at the other requirement. We have evaluated this possibility that x2 star is equal to 0, which led us to the point 0, 0, and we have done with it. Now let's look at the other point, that x1 mu star is equal to 1. If mu star is equal to 1, then what does this say? This equation tells you that immediately x1 star is defined as 1 minus k, and substitute x1 star here in x2 square equal to 2k x1, which is binding, and you will see that x2 star now admits to two possible roots, plus minus under root of 2k into 1 minus k, which immediately means that for this root to exist, k should be between 0 and 1. If k becomes 1, then what happens? X1 star becomes 0, x2 star becomes 0, and we have already considered that case here. So therefore, I am not writing less than or equal to 1, I am just writing, and mu is anyway, k is anyway defined to be greater than 0, so I am only writing k is between 0 and 1. Okay. So with that, when k is between 0 and 1, you get two possible solutions. Now these are those solutions. K is strictly less than 1, then these are the two possible solutions that we get for the KKT point. Okay. Now let's move forward. Where are we? So the another set of KKT solution is this. Now let's write the Hessian of the Lagrangian function. So what was the objective function? X1 minus 1 whole square plus x2 square. So therefore twice partial derivative with x1 will give you 2, twice partial derivative with x2 will give you 2. Since there are no interacting x1 and x2 terms in the circle, so therefore the off diagonal term will come out to be 0. So this is my del square of f. Now what do I need to write? Plus mu star the del square of the g function. And what is my g function? 2k x1 minus x2 square. So if I take twice partial derivative with x1, I'll get 0. If I take twice partial derivative with x2, I'll get minus 2. And because there are no interaction terms, the off diagonal terms will be 0. So therefore, plus mu star, this becomes the Hessian of the Lagrangian function, which you can write it as 2 plus 0 mu star, so 2, and 2 into 2 taken common, 1 minus mu star and 0, 0, which incidentally is positive definite straight away if mu star is less than 1, and if mu star becomes if mu star is less than 1. If mu star becomes 1, then it is positive semi-definite. Okay. Now let's evaluate, because we will have to calculate the D transpose Hessian times of D. So if you put D1 D2 here and D1 D2 here, you will simply get it as 2 D1 squared, because it's a diagonal matrix, very straightforward. 2 into 1 minus mu star D2 square, which is same as take 2 common out, D1 square plus 1 minus mu star into D2 square. And the vector D has to come from where? From the null space of the Jacobian of the active constraints, and there is only one active constraint, which is given by 2k x1 minus x2 square. So if you take partial derivative with x1, you will get 2k. If you get partial derivative with x2, you will get minus of 2x2, and therefore this becomes the Jacobian times d1 d2 should become equal to 0. In other words, these two can be cancelled, and k d1 should be equal to d2 x2 star. So now let's look at point 0, 0. If the point is point 0, 0, which means to say that x2 star is 0, then the d1 becomes 0, and so d2 you should just take something non-negative. Okay. So the because the d1 has become 0, so this term is gone. So this term is gone, and now you are left with d2 non-negative. So you are left with 1 minus mu star into d2 star, and we want necessity is that it should be greater than or equal to 0. Sufficiency is that it should be greater than or equal to 0. So now mu star is what? 1 minus k. So therefore this term becomes 1 into 1 minus k into d2 square. Since this is always positive, I only need to worry about this. If k is greater than 1, then clearly 1 minus k, 1 minus 1 by k is positive. 1 minus 1 by k into d2 star square is greater than 0 for d2 not equal to 0. So sufficiency condition is met, and hence for k greater than 0, k greater than 1, 0, 0 will become an optimal point. If k becomes equal to 1, then only the necessary condition is satisfied, because this becomes 0, this also becomes 0, so you get greater than or equal to 0. So necessary condition is satisfied. But from the figure, we can see that it will be also an optimal point. But we cannot say from the sufficiency condition. The gap is there between necessary and sufficiency condition. We have to explicitly go to the geometry of the problem and verify. And that is that you can verify it from here. Now, now now consider the case that k is in this case less than 1. So if the k becomes less than 1, d1 is 0, k is less than 1, say 0.5, then 1 minus, uh, then mu star will become 2. So 1 minus 2 will become minus. So this will become minus of d2 square, which is that if k is less than 0, then this term becomes strictly less than 0, which is to say that it is not a minimum, because now the second order conditions are also not met. So we have seen this in our geometry also. When k is small, these two are looks like minimum. If 0, 0, even though feasible point coming out of our algebra, is not a minimum when k is a small number like this, which I have shown here. When k becomes greater than 1, then of course 0, 0 becomes a thing, and then the other 2 points just don't exist. So there is only one optimal sitting when k is greater than 1. There is one optimal sitting at 0, 0. In fact, 1 and greater than or equal to 1. And when k is less than 1, then 0, 0 is not a optimal point. Now we need to just verify what happens when k is less than 1. These 2 points now exist, and we need to see what our sufficiency condition says about it. So now let us look at this point 1 minus k plus minus under root of 2k into 1 minus k, which are these two touching points. These two touching points, this we have already evaluated, and k is between 0 and 1, and for this we have already seen that these points come into picture only when mu star is 1. So now again you calculate this you calculate this uh, scalar, then it is going to be equal to, because of the fact that mu is now 1, so this term is simply gone, this term is simply gone. So you are going to get it as d1 square. But what is d1's connection to d2? d1 is d2 by k into x2 star. So therefore when you square it, d2 square by k square into x2 square star square, which is 2k into 1 minus k, which can be again written as d2 square into 2 d2 square into 1 minus 1 by uh, uh, 2 1 minus, sorry, 2 into 1 minus k by k, 1 minus k by k, and since k is between 0 and 1, this numerator is, this term is positive, this term is positive, dt square is anyway positive, so whole of this thing becomes positive, and so this becomes strictly strictly greater than 0. This becomes strictly greater than 0, and uh, hence what happens? The sufficiency conditions for strict local minimum are met. So to conclude, 0, 0 is only the minimum when k is greater than or equal to 1, and 1 minus k plus minus under root of 2k in square root of 1 minus k are the two global minimums. This is also a global minimum. It's clear from the geometry when k is strictly between 0 and 1. I think with this I will stop this lecture here. Thank you.